Before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more bedtime stories. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. And if there's a story you'd like to hear next, I'd love to know that too. I travel a few times a year for work, usually to conferences or training sessions in different cities. Most of them are short trips, 3 or 4 days max, but it's enough to break routine. I work for a logistics company based out of Denver, and whenever there's a national meet, they'll send someone from each office. That particular trip was supposed to be simple: 2 nights in St. Louis, a few meetings, and a flight back home. My co-workers, the regional leads, had flown out a day earlier. I was going the next morning because I had to finish some paperwork that came in late Friday night. That Sunday morning, I woke up before sunrise. The air outside my apartment was crisp and the streetlights still hummed over empty sidewalks. My cab driver, a chatty guy named Lewis, asked if I was traveling for work. I nodded, half awake. "Airport's packed this early," he said, glancing at me through the rearview mirror. "A lot of folks try to beat the lines." "Yeah," I mumbled, just hoping it's a smooth flight. When I got to Denver International, it was around 6:30 a.m., the kind of hour where everyone looks half asleep but still walks like they're late. I checked in, dropped my bag, went through security, and found my gate. We still had about 90 minutes until boarding, so I decided to walk around. I figured I'd grab a drink and maybe a breakfast sandwich. The airport was alive with motion. People rolling luggage, kids crying, announcements blaring every few minutes. But something about airports always makes me feel detached, like you're stuck in this in-between world where no one really belongs. Walked past a row of souvenir shops, then into a small cafe near Gate 28. While I was waiting for my drink, I noticed this guy standing by one of those charging stations. He was tall, maybe mid-40s, wearing a plain black hoodie, baseball cap, and carrying a backpack. What caught my attention wasn't his clothes. It was the way he was holding his phone. He had it angled, just enough that the camera faced me. First, I brushed it off. Maybe he was checking his messages or video chatting. I turned around and waited for my order. When I looked back, he was still holding the phone the same way. The lens pointed toward me. It gave me a weird feeling in my chest. That faint, electric tingle you get when something's not right but you can't explain why. I took my coffee, started walking back toward the gate, and noticed in the reflection of a display case that the man was following me. He wasn't close, at maybe 20 feet behind, but he mirrored every turn I took. "Don't be paranoid," I muttered under my breath. "You're tired. You've had 3 hours of sleep." Still, I decided to test it. I went into one of those overpriced magazine stores pretending to look at travel pillows. From the corner of my eye, I saw the guy stop just outside. He looked down at something, probably pretending to check his phone again. But I saw his camera tilt in my direction. The way his hand moved told me he was recording. I moved deeper into the store, ducking between a rack of magazines and a shelf of snacks, pretending to browse. The woman at the counter asked, "You finding everything okay, hun?" "Yeah, just killing time," I said, forcing a smile. When I glanced back, he was gone. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. I figured that was the end of it. Just some weirdo, maybe filming random people for TikTok or whatever. I walked back to my gate, found a seat, and tried to relax. About 15 minutes later, I looked up, and there he was, sitting across from me, not directly, but diagonally, maybe 5 or 6 seats away. He wasn't filming anymore, but he had earbuds in and was talking softly into his phone. I told myself, it's fine. There are hundreds of people here. Maybe he's just going to the same place. When boarding was called, he got up before me. I watched him join the same line for Group B, the same as mine. "All right," I whispered, "just coincidence." On the plane, my seat was 19A. His? Somewhere near the front. I saw the back of his hoodie when I boarded. That small comfort settled my nerves for a while. The flight was uneventful. I dozed off midway, woke up when the captain announced our descent and didn't think much about the man again, until I got off the plane. At baggage claim, I spotted him again. He wasn't looking at me, but he was there, standing a few carousels away, scrolling his phone. I decided to ignore it, grabbed my suitcase, and started heading toward the exit when I noticed someone holding a sign. It had my name on it. My full name. Christopher Lang. Now look, I'm not some big shot at my company. No one's ever met me at the airport before. I stopped, thinking it had to be a mistake. The guy holding the sign was maybe in his 30s, wearing a suit, clean-shaven, friendly smile. "Hey," I said cautiously. "Who are you here for?" "Christopher Lang," he replied, his voice smooth, confident. "We've been sent to pick you up, sir. Welcome to St. Louis." My stomach dropped. "From who?" I asked. He smiled again. "Your company, sir. Transit Logistics. We were told you'd be needing transportation to your hotel." That's when my skin went cold. Our company never sends drivers, ever. We expense everything. Before I could respond, my eyes caught movement to the left. The man in the black hoodie, standing there again, watching. He wasn't close. Maybe 20 feet away, but this time he wasn't pretending to be on the phone. He was just staring. The driver looked at me expectantly. "Sir, if you'll follow me, the car's right outside." "Yeah," I said, swallowing hard. "Just give me 1 sec. Need to hit the restroom first." "Of course," he replied politely. I turned and walked fast, and not running, but fast enough that my pulse started to pound in my ears. As soon as I got inside the restroom, I locked myself in a stall and called my office. "Hey, this is Chris Lang," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Quick question. Did you guys arrange a car service for me at the airport?" The line went silent for a second. Then my manager, Tina, said, "No. Why? We don't do that. Are you at the airport?" "Yeah. Some guy's out here holding a sign with my name on it." "What?" she said sharply. "No, we didn't send anyone. Don't go with him. Just get a taxi or Uber like usual." "Okay," I said. I figured, thanks. I hung up, waited a minute, then peeked out. The driver was still there, holding the sign, and the man in the hoodie was gone. That somehow made it worse. I walked the opposite way through a crowd of people, found another exit near the rental car counters, and went outside. There I flagged down a cab. The driver, an older man with thick glasses, asked where I was headed. "Marwood Hotel downtown," I said. He nodded, tossed my bag in the trunk, and pulled out onto the main road. As we drove, I kept looking behind us, half expecting to see that black hoodie again or maybe a car following. But there was nothing, just morning traffic and the hum of the highway. When I finally reached the hotel, I checked in fast and went straight to my room. I didn't leave the room the rest of that day. That night around 10 p.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me swipe it open. There was no one on the other end, just silence. Then faintly, a man's voice said, "Next time, don't run." I froze. My heart thudded so hard it hurt. "Who is this?" I said. Click. The line went dead. I told hotel security. They checked the call logs, said it came from a private number. I filed a report with local police, but nothing ever came of it. I stayed the rest of the conference, though I barely slept, and left the very morning it ended. To this day, I still don't know what that was about. But I do know this. If I hadn't trusted my gut at that airport, I don't think I'd be sitting here writing this right now. I travel a lot for work. Not the glamorous kind of travel where you stay in fancy hotels and sip wine while watching the sunset. More like running through terminals with a laptop bag, half-dead coffee, and 3 hours of sleep. My name's Ryan Holbrook, and I work for a logistics company based in Kansas City. My job sends me all over the Midwest, sometimes down to Dallas, sometimes up to Minneapolis. After a while, airports stop feeling like destinations and start feeling like time loops. Same fluorescent lights, same TSA lines, same overpriced sandwiches. I've got a routine, though, one that keeps me sane and saves a bit of cash. Whenever I fly, I park at this off-site lot called Sky Park Express, about 3 miles from the Kansas City International Airport. They've got a big gated lot, a small office, and these white shuttle vans that loop between the airport and the lot every 15 minutes or so. It's half the price of parking at the airport itself. I've been doing it for years. That night, or I guess early morning, everything felt like just another work trip. I'd been in Denver for a week of meetings and flight delays, and by the time we landed back in Kansas City, it was past 2 a.m. I was wiped. I'd spent the flight half asleep against the window and woke up groggy, neck stiff and desperate to just be in my own bed. I remember the hum of the plane engines fading as we taxied, the cabin lights flicking on, and that wave of exhaustion crashing down on me all over again. By the time I picked up my suitcase from baggage claim, the airport was practically deserted. Just a few scattered travelers, cleaning staff, and the faint echo of wheels on tile. I headed out through the glass, doors into the pickup area where the shuttle vans usually stopped. The cold air hit me hard. Early March, maybe 40 degrees, with that thin, sharp wind that slices through a hoodie. A couple of taxis idled near the curb, a few late-night Ubers. I didn't have to call Sky Park. They just loop every 15 minutes. So I waited, scrolling through my phone, zoning out. Then about 5 minutes later, a black passenger van pulled up right in front of me. It wasn't white like the usual Sky Park vans, but it had a small magnetic sign on the side I couldn't quite read in the dark. Still, it stopped right in front of me, door facing my way. The driver leaned toward the open window and said, "Sky Park?" His voice was muffled, kind of low. I caught the word, nodded, and he motioned with his hand like, "Yeah, come on in." Without thinking twice, I opened the side door, climbed in, and muttered, "Thanks, man. Appreciate it." Inside, the van smelled faintly of cigarette smoke and one of those cheap air fresheners that try too hard. There was no one else inside. Usually there'd be a few people, but maybe I just caught it between runs. The driver was a guy maybe in his late 40s. Baseball cap pulled low, dark hoodie. Couldn't see much of his face in the dim cabin light. "Long night?" he asked, pulling away from the curb. "Yeah, man, been up since 5, just glad to be back." "Denver, right?" "Yeah," I said, surprised. "How'd you know?" He chuckled softly. "Lucky guess." At first, I didn't think much of it. I just sank into the seat and pulled my phone out to check the time. 10:18 a.m. I texted my coworker that I'd landed safe and that I'd check in later that morning. As we left the airport grounds, I noticed he didn't turn on any company radio or shuttle app on his phone, which was weird. Usually the Sky Park drivers logged pickups through an iPad on the dash, but whatever. I was too tired to overthink it. About 10 minutes later, though, I started to realize something was off. The drive was long. Longer than usual. We passed the main airport signs, but instead of taking the familiar route down Cookingham Drive, we went straight, then veered off toward a darker, quieter stretch of highway. No streetlights, no signs. Just miles of two-lane, blacktop surrounded by open fields. At first I figured maybe there was construction. It wasn't unheard of. But the farther we went, the fewer familiar landmarks I saw. I finally looked up from my phone. "Hey, isn't the Sky Park lot the other way?" "Nah," he said calmly. "We're good. I'm taking you home." "What?" He didn't even glance back. "Home. That's what you said, right?" "No, man. I said Sky Park. The parking garage. I left my car there." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "No, I'm taking you home." The way he said it, flat, certain, hit me like ice water. I leaned forward a bit. "You work for Sky Park, right?" "No." That one word flipped my stomach. My pulse started pounding. Then, "Who do you work for?" "Don't worry about it." I froze. My mouth went dry. The van rolled through another intersection. Empty streets. Not a single other car in sight. "Look, man, this is a mistake," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Just drop me off anywhere. I'll get another ride." "You'll be fine," he muttered. I gripped the handle on my suitcase. The way he said it didn't sound reassuring. I started watching for any chance to get out. A red light, a stop sign, anything. But he kept going through every green like he was deliberately avoiding stopping. Finally, after what felt like forever, the van slowed for a light. My heart was pounding so loud I could hear it. I said quickly, "Hey man, I'm not feeling good. I think I'm gonna puke. Can you pull over for a second?" He didn't answer, but the light turned red. That was my shot. I grabbed my suitcase, slid the door latch, and pushed it open. Cold air rushed in. The driver snapped his head around. "What the hell you doing, man?" I was already halfway out. I gotta get out. Sorry, and I jumped. Not a dramatic movie jump. I stepped out onto the curb and nearly twisted my ankle, but I landed fine. The van was idling there for a second. Then the light flipped green. He just stared at me through the side mirror. I lifted a shaky hand. "I'm good, man. I'll find another ride." He didn't say another word, just pulled away and disappeared down the street. I stood there, heart still hammering on some empty stretch of road lined with dark warehouses. Not a single light except a distant neon glow from what looked like a gas station. I walked toward dragging my suitcase, still half in disbelief that I'd just gotten into a random stranger's van. At the gas station, I called an Uber, this time triple-checking the license plate before I even went near the car. The Uber driver, a middle-aged woman named Kendra, took one look at me and said, "You okay, honey? You look like you've seen a ghost." I just laughed nervously. Yeah, wrong shuttle, I guess. When I finally got back to the Sky Park lot, the real shuttle was parked there. White van, bright logo, driver in a uniform, just how it always looked. I unlocked my car, sat inside for a full minute, and let out the biggest breath of my life. Didn't even tell anyone for a while. It was too weird, too surreal. But every time I fly now, I double-check. The van, the logo, the driver, everything. Because that night, I still don't know who that man was, where he thought he was taking me, or if he even thought I was someone else. Sometimes when I replay it, I'm not sure what's worse, that he might have mistaken me for another passenger or that he didn't mistake me at all. I had just gotten off a late shift when my phone buzzed. It was a text from my old college friend Jesse. "Hey, my flight lands around 11:20. Can you pick me up? I'll owe you coffee." I remember sighing out loud, staring at the time, 9:45 p.m. I was exhausted, but Jessie was one of those people I could never say no to. She'd moved to Denver a couple of years ago, and now she was flying back to visit her parents for the first time since. We hadn't seen each other in months, so I threw on my jacket, grabbed my keys, and stepped out into the cool night. It was one of those Colorado nights that felt half deserted. Cold air, empty streets, and the distant hum of the interstate. My old Civic rattled a bit when I turned the ignition, and the dashboard light flickered. I always told myself I'd fix it, but somehow I never did. The roads were empty, save for a few trucks rumbling in the opposite direction. The kind of stillness that makes you realize how alone you are on the road. By the time I pulled into Aspen Regional Airport, the lot was nearly deserted. Just a few cars idling in the cell phone waiting area, their drivers slouched in their seats, blue glow from their phones lighting their faces. I checked the flight tracker. Jesse's plane was delayed by 30 minutes. "Of course," I muttered. I figured I'd kill some time walking around inside. Airports have always weirdly comforted me. The smell of coffee, the low hum of distant conversations, the occasional announcement echoing over the PA system. So I parked, zipped my jacket, and started walking toward the entrance. Inside it was eerily quiet. Only a few people milled around, some yawning travelers, others clearly employees just waiting out their shifts. The fluorescent lights gave everything a sterile, dreamlike glow. I grabbed a small coffee from one of those 24-hour kiosks near baggage claim and started wandering through the concourse. A janitor was mopping near the security line. A couple whispered to each other by a vending machine. A man in a suit slept across 3 chairs near a closed gate. It was peaceful, until I noticed her. At first, I didn't think anything of it. A woman with pale blonde hair, wearing an oversized hoodie and sweatpants, carrying a small duffel bag. She had one of those neutral, almost sleepy faces, but I started noticing her too often. Every time I turned a corner, she seemed to be there too. At first, I thought it was just coincidence. We were walking in the same direction. Maybe she was, waiting on a flight too. Then it got stranger. When I turned down one of the connecting hallways between terminals, she did too. When I slowed down, she slowed down. And when I stopped at a display board to check incoming flights, she stopped too. I could see her reflection faintly in the glass a few yards back. She wasn't pretending to look at her phone. She was just watching me. My heart started to race a bit, but I tried to play it cool. I turned and started walking toward the exit, pretending to check my phone again. I even said out loud quietly, "Yeah, okay, see you in a few," as if I were talking to Jessie. When I glanced behind me, the woman had begun walking again. Same slow, steady pace. That's when my nerves kicked in. The main doors were still, a few hundred feet away. I could hear the automatic doors open and close every so often, a sound that suddenly felt miles away. I walked faster. She did too. By the time I got outside, I could hear her sneakers squeaking faintly against the polished floor behind me. Once I hit the cold night air, I felt a rush of relief. I cut through the small lot toward where my car was parked. The sound of her footsteps faded as the automatic doors closed behind me. I half-jogged the rest of the way to my car, fumbling with my keys. When I finally slid inside and locked the doors, I sat there catching my breath, feeling a little ridiculous. Maybe she was just headed to her car too, I muttered to myself. Don't be paranoid. Still, I scanned the parking lot. Empty. I took a few slow sips of my coffee, trying to calm down. About 15 minutes later, Jessie texted, "Just landed. Should be out soon." I started the car, drove around to the pickup area, and pulled into one of the parallel parking lanes near the curb. Within 5 minutes, Jessie came out dragging her suitcase, her brown hair tied back and her face tired, but smiling. That flight was brutal," she said, hopping into the passenger seat. "You're seriously a lifesaver." "No problem," I said, trying to sound casual. "Let's just get you home. You good for a coffee tomorrow morning?" "Absolutely." We drove off, both of us chatting about random things. The flight, her parents, some mutual friends from college. The usual catching up. But somewhere between the chatter and the quiet hum of the car, I noticed something in my rearview mirror. A car. Same dull-colored sedan. Headlights glaring behind us. At first, I didn't think much of it. There were other cars leaving the airport too. But after merging onto the highway and driving for about 10 minutes, it was still there. Same lane. Same distance. Jessie noticed me glancing in the mirror. "You good?" "Yeah," I said automatically. "Just tired." But my stomach was tight. We eventually took the exit toward her neighborhood. It wasn't a busy area, just a few quiet, residential streets and small apartment complexes surrounded by trees. The car exited too. Jessie frowned. "That's weird." "What?" "That car's been behind us since the airport." I nodded, pretending like I hadn't noticed. "Yeah, probably just coincidence." But when I made another turn and it followed again, same speed, same distance, Jessie went quiet. By the time we turned onto her street, it was dead silent outside. Not a single other car around. The sedan slowed down and parked about 50 feet behind me when I stopped in front of Jessie's apartment building. Jessie looked at me, uneasy. "That's creepy." "Yeah. Maybe she's just like checking her GPS," Jessie said, trying to sound logical but clearly spooked. "Maybe," I said. "Hey, before I go inside, can you maybe just wait until I'm in?" "Of course." She grabbed her bag and stepped out. "Text me when you get home, okay?" I watched her walk up the short path to her building, unlock the door, and disappear inside. Then I glanced back in the mirror. The driver's side window of the car behind me rolled down halfway, and that's when I saw her. The same pale-haired woman from the airport. Same hoodie, same blank expression, just staring. My heart slammed in my chest. I didn't even think. I threw the car in drive and took off. The sedan's headlights flared behind me as it followed. I turned right, then left, trying to shake her, but she stayed, glued to my bumper. "Jesus Christ," I muttered, gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. The streets blurred past, empty storefronts, closed gas stations, the occasional flicker of a traffic light turning yellow to red. I ran one of them. She stayed on me. That's when I remembered something a cop had once said on a news segment I'd seen years ago. If you're ever being followed, go to a police station. So I made for the one downtown. It was about 10 minutes away. 10 minutes of pure adrenaline. Every turn I made, she mirrored. Every acceleration, every lane shift. When I finally saw the glow of the police station sign up ahead, I swung into the parking lot fast enough that my tires screeched. I glanced behind. Me. She slowed down, then turned off onto a side street and disappeared. I sat there for almost a full minute, breathing hard, staring at the empty road. No one came back. I didn't even go inside. I just sat there until my hands stopped shaking. Then I drove home, every shadow in my rearview mirror making my pulse jump. I double-checked the locks on my door that night before I went to bed. Jesse texted me, "You get home safe?" "Yeah," I typed back. "Long night." "Okay. Thanks again for the ride." I stared at my phone for a while, wondering if I should have told her what really happened after she got out. But I didn't. Because even now, years later, I still can't explain why that woman followed me, or how she seemed to know exactly where I'd go next. I had just gotten back to New York after a short business trip to Denver. The flight landed a little after 10 p.m., and the terminal was quieter than usual for LaGuardia. The kind of quiet that only happens on a Tuesday night. Half the shops closed, the fluorescent lights humming, the air feeling stale from too many recycled breaths. My name's Liam Carter, and I'd been working as a freelance photojournalist for a few years. Traveling was a regular part of my life, but that trip had been rough. The project I'd been working on fell apart last minute, and I just wanted to get home, shower, and sleep. My friend Ryan had offered to pick me up since my car was in the shop. When the seatbelt light clicked off, everyone stood up instantly, like always. I grabbed my backpack from under the seat, waited for my turn to shuffle down the narrow aisle, and finally stepped out into the stale, over-air-conditioned corridor. I could feel that subtle New York humidity sneaking in through the automatic doors ahead. By the time I reached baggage claim, it was 10:15. The crowd around the carousel was mixed. Families, a few solo travelers, one couple whisper arguing near the corner. The monitor flickered a bit before showing, "Flight 237 arrived, bags coming." I scrolled through my phone and saw a text from Ryan. "Bro, traffic's nasty near Queens BLVD, give me 20. I texted back, "No rush, still waiting on bags." The carousel started clunking and humming, the first bags dropping with that metallic slam. I watched the suitcases glide past, some wrapped in plastic, some plastered with stickers from everywhere. Mine was a dark charcoal suitcase, pretty basic, with a red luggage tag I'd bought at a Target in Denver that morning. As more people started pulling their bags, the crowd thinned. Finally, I spotted mine rolling around the curve. I stepped forward, grabbed the handle, and pulled it off the belt. I remember thinking how light it felt compared to when I left. But I didn't think much of it. Just figured I'd packed lighter than usual. I started wheeling it toward the exit, the plastic wheels squeaking on the tile floor. My eyes flicked up to the glass doors ahead, the reflection of the dim fluorescent lights giving everything that pale bluish tint. Then, just as I reached the automatic doors, someone grabbed my shoulder. Hard. Not a tap, not a brush. A grab. Froze, turning around fast. Behind me stood a guy in his mid-30s, shorter than me, maybe 5'6", stocky, wearing a faded hoodie and a baseball cap pulled low. His eyes were sharp, angry. His jaw was tight, like he'd been holding back a scream. "Hey," he barked. "That's my bag." For a second, I didn't even process what he said. "Excuse me?" I asked, stepping back slightly. He jabbed his finger toward my suitcase. "That bag, right there. You took it off the carousel. That's mine." I blinked. "I'm pretty sure this one's mine, man." "The hell it is," he snapped, and then, before I could react, he reached out and grabbed the handle. I tightened my grip instinctively. "Whoa, hey, relax. Let me check." I popped the zipper open just enough to peek inside. My camera case was right on top, my denim jacket underneath it, and a pack of gum I'd bought before boarding. Definitely my stuff, see? I said, keeping my voice calm. My clothes, my gear. He didn't even look inside. He just glared at me, his breathing heavy. You planted that stuff in there. You think I'm stupid? You swapped the bags and stuffed your crap in to make it look like yours. I stared at him, half in disbelief, half trying to decide if this was some kind of prank. But his eyes, those eyes were dead serious. Look, dude, I don't know what your problem is, I said slowly, but this is my bag. If you lost yours, maybe it just looks like mine. Happens all the time. He stepped closer, invading my space. I could smell the mix of sweat and stale coffee on his breath. You're lying, he hissed. You knew mine looked like that. You waited until I wasn't looking and snatched it. That's when I noticed something. He didn't have any bag with him. Where's your suitcase then? I asked, trying to keep my tone steady. He hesitated just for a split second. They must have pulled it off early. Probably already back there, he said, pointing vaguely toward the carousel. Okay then, I said, gesturing toward the TSA podium. Let's go talk to security, they'll sort it out easy. He shook his head immediately. Nah, we don't need to do all that. Just give me my bag and we'll call it even. That set off alarm bells. My grip on the handle tightened. No chance, if you think it's yours, we'll let them check the tag. Every bag's got a sticker with the flight number and name. His face twitched. I don't need some TSA clown telling me what's mine. I could feel my pulse in my throat now. The people nearby, those still waiting on luggage, were pretending not to notice. You know that awkward American way of ignoring conflict in public? That was exactly what was happening. Sir, I said firmly. Step back. This is my bag. I'm leaving. He didn't move. Instead, his hand shot out again, gripping my shoulder even tighter than before. Let go, I snapped. You're a damn thief. He spat, his face just inches from mine now. You don't deserve— sir! A woman's voice cut through the tension. A TSA worker was approaching, her radio crackling at her side. What's going on here? She asked sharply. This guy stole my luggage, the man yelled, pointing at me. The TSA officer looked between us. Sir, can I see your claim tag? I handed mine over immediately, the small sticker with my last name, Carter, still. Intact, sir, she said, turning to him. Do you have your baggage tag? He froze. They must have lost it. I don't have it right now. Then I can't verify ownership, she said professionally. You'll have to step aside. He glared at her, then at me, and for a moment I thought he might actually swing at someone. But then, without a word, he turned and stormed off toward the far end of the terminal. I let out a shaky breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. The TSA officer nodded at me. You okay, sir? Yeah, I said quietly. Just weird. People get mixed up with luggage all the time, she said. But that guy's reaction, that was off. I nodded, zipped my bag, and finally walked toward the exit. Outside, the air was thick and damp, headlights flashing across the wet pavement. I spotted Ryan's car pulling up, a beat-up silver Civic. He rolled down the window. Yo, Liam, took you long enough, man. Yeah, I said, sliding into the passenger seat. You won't believe what just happened. As I started telling him, I glanced through the window and my heart dropped. Across the road near the sidewalk stood that same guy. He was staring right at us. The streetlight above him flickered, throwing shadows across his face. He didn't move, didn't blink, just stared. Ryan, I said quietly. Drive. He frowned. What? Why? Just go. Please. The guy started walking, fast. Now, I shouted. Ryan floored it, tires squealing on the slick asphalt. I looked back, and for a second I saw him chasing, his arm outstretched, before he vanished into the blur of lights. Dude, what the hell was that? Ryan asked once we were on the freeway. I don't know, I muttered, still staring into the side mirror. He said I stole his bag, but I didn't. I swear to God I didn't. Ryan shook his head. Man, People are nuts these days. I tried to laugh it off, but something didn't feel right. When I got home, I dragged my suitcase into the living room, flipped it open, and froze. Everything inside was mine. My jacket, my camera, my charger. Except for one thing. In the side pocket, tucked deep under a folded shirt, was an envelope. Plain white. No markings. My stomach dropped. I pulled it out slowly and opened it. Inside was a single photo. A blurry, candid shot of me. Standing at the Denver airport earlier that day, taken from behind. The timestamp on the corner read 9:42 a.m. and underneath, scrawled in messy handwriting, "Next time, don't touch what isn't yours." I had just started my new position at the Chicago O'Hare International Airport, but to be honest, it didn't feel much like a new job. Same title, ramp agent, same long hours, same concrete smell after it rained, same dull roar of jet engines that you never really get used to, no matter how long you've been there. The only real difference was the airline. I'd been transferred after a scheduling dispute, which basically meant I had to start fresh with a whole new crew. Different supervisors, new procedures, and a bunch of guys who'd already built their own rhythm. My name's Ryan Keller, and if I'm being honest, I'm scared of heights, which is ironic considering I work around planes every single night. I can deal with watching them take off, sure, but when I have to climb 20 feet up into a cargo bin on the tail end of a plane, my knees start locking up before I even reach the ladder. That night in late September, the weather was absolute hell. Heavy rain, lightning every couple of minutes, thunder that rattled the windows of the break room. Chicago storms are loud, the kind that make the ground feel alive under your boots. It was the last flight of the night, a red-eye heading to Phoenix, and the ramp was half flooded from the storm. My shift lead, Devin, walked over, hood pulled, up, flashlight in hand. "Yo, Keller," he shouted over the rain, "you're throwing this one." "Throwing?" I repeated, half hoping I heard him wrong. "Yeah, cargo 7. Not much on it. You'll be fine." He turned and pointed toward the tail section of a sleek white aircraft glistening under the floodlights. The words Cargo 7 didn't mean much to anyone outside of the crew, but to us, it meant one thing. It was one of the few planes that occasionally carried human remains. We called them HR loads. A box, usually white, sealed tight, no names, no visible markings, just a tag. And guess what? That night, there was one. "Man, you serious?" I said, shaking my head. "Why, you always gotta." "Give me the creepy ones?" Devin grinned. "Come on, man, you're new to the crew. Gotta earn your stripes." "Earn my stripes by chilling with a dead guy?" He laughed, slapped my shoulder, and shouted to Luis, who was climbing up the belt loader. "Get it set. Up for Ryan. Make it quick, when storm's only getting worse." The rain pelted down so hard I could barely keep my eyes open as I climbed onto the conveyor. The metal was slick under my boots, and every flash of lightning turned the wet tarmac into a mirror. Inside the bin it was tight and echoey. My flashlight beam bounced off the aluminum walls, the sound of rain hammering above me like 1,000 tiny fists. I set my gloves on, grabbed my handheld scanner, and called out, "All right, let's make it fast, yeah? Not trying to camp out up here tonight." Luis laughed from below. "Don't worry, bro. Maybe your roommate in there'll keep you company." "Real funny," I said dryly. There it was, the long white box, sealed, perfectly still, sitting like a silent witness to everything. I pushed myself as far from it as I could, sitting near the lip of the bin as I started sorting the bags. I put in my earbuds, queued up my playlist, a mix of rock and old blues. Just something to drown out the storm. I was about 10 minutes in when the music cut off. I tapped my earbud, thinking maybe it disconnected, but nothing. I pulled my phone out, still at full battery. Spotify wasn't frozen, but at the top of my screen there was a text notification from an unknown number. It just said, "Hi." I frowned. Probably spam, I thought. I replied, "Who's this?" Within seconds it showed read, but no reply. Weird, but not unheard of. I shrugged it off, put my phone back in my pocket, and went back to work. Outside, thunder rolled again, deep and low like something growling. I yelled toward the open hatch, "Luis, belt's lagging. Y'all good down there?" No response. Then the conveyor stopped completely. "Hey," I shouted, "why'd you kill the belt?" After a few seconds, I heard Devin's voice muffled through the storm. "Belt's dead. Ran out of gas. We're grabbing another. Sit tight." "Sit tight," I muttered. "Yeah, easy for you to say." It was dead quiet except for the rain. Then, slowly, it started getting cold. Not the normal kind of cold you get from wind chill. This was wrong. I could see my breath forming clouds. The air felt thick, heavy, like I'd stepped into a freezer. I shifted to grab a duffel bag to use as a backrest. That's when a flash of lightning lit the cargo hold, and in that split second, I saw him. A boy, maybe 12, sitting cross-legged, right on top of the white box, pale skin, soaked hair plastered to his forehead, wearing what looked like an old-school uniform. He was smiling, not like a kid smiles, but like someone pretending to. His head tilted to the side just slightly, like a marionette whose strings had slackened. Then the light vanished, and he was gone. I froze. I didn't move, didn't breathe. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it echoing inside the aluminum walls. I whispered to myself, "You didn't see that, you're tired, you're wet, it's nothing." Another flash, empty, just the white box again. The new loader engine rumbled to life outside, and that snapped me out of it. I scrambled toward the opening, half crawling, half sliding down the conveyor, almost losing my footing. Luis caught me at the bottom, eyes wide. "Yo, dude, you good?" "I'm done," I said breathlessly. "I'm not going back in there. You take it," he frowned. "What happened?" I waved my hand. "Just do it, man. Please." Devin approached, wiping rain from his face. "What's wrong with you, Keller?" "Nothing. Just sick of being in tight spaces," I said, avoiding eye contact. They exchanged looks. Luis shrugged and started climbing the conveyor. I turned and began walking toward the tug. That's when my phone buzzed again. One new message. Same unknown number. I opened it. "It's your new friend." I felt the blood drain from my face. I spun around, the cargo hatch still open, rain pouring through the light. Luis was halfway inside, flashlight swinging as he moved bags. "Luis," I yelled, "get out of there, now!" He looked back, confused. What? And then his flashlight cut out. The loader engine sputtered, stuttered, and died. I ran toward the plane, my boots splashing through puddles, Devin shouting something behind me. Then lightning cracked, the brightest one yet, lighting up the entire ramp like midday. And there he was again, the same boy, standing at the edge of the cargo door, looking down at me, that same twisted smile. Luis's voice screamed from inside, just once. Then silence. The light faded. The boy was gone. We found Luis a few minutes later slumped against the back of the bin, pale and shivering. He said he felt something pull him back, but couldn't explain it. The HR box was still there, sealed tight. The storm cleared. An hour later. We finished up, but no one spoke much. When I got home around 3 a.m., I took off my soaked uniform and threw it in the hamper. My hands were still shaking when I checked my phone again. The message thread was gone. The unknown number had disappeared completely, like it had never existed, but at the very top of my contact list was a new name I didn't add. Your friend. No number, just a name. And when I tapped it, my phone froze for a few seconds, before a single text appeared, "See you next shift." I never went back to that airline after that night. I remember that night so vividly that sometimes I wonder if my mind keeps replaying it, just to remind me how close we came to losing that girl. I work as a youth transport agent. It's not a job most people even know exists. Parents pay us to escort their kids, usually teenagers, to different programs. Most of them are being sent to wilderness therapy camps, residential schools, or boarding programs for troubled youth. That's the polite term people use. Truth is, most of these kids are dealing with trauma, drugs, or serious emotional issues, and their parents are desperate for a lifeline. It's not a glamorous job. There are long flights, awkward silences, emotional breakdowns, and a lot of uncomfortable airport layovers. But I like the idea that I'm doing something that matters, that I'm keeping someone's kids safe. On this trip, my partner Lena and I were assigned to escort a 15-year-old girl named Kaylee from her home in Oregon to a behavioral program in Arizona. We had to change planes in Phoenix Ridge International Airport, one of those big modern airports that feels more like a shopping mall than a place for airplanes. Kaylee was quiet, bright red hoodie, earbuds in, backpack on her lap, staring at the floor most of the time. She wasn't rude, just checked out. I'd seen that look before. It was the I hate everyone but I'm too tired to fight look. By the time we landed, it was about 8:40 p.m., the kind of night where everything feels too clean, too fluorescent. We walked through the terminal, past those glass walls showing the runway lights blinking in the desert dark. The air smelled like coffee and jet fuel. "Hey," I said to her softly as we walked. "You did good on the flight. We'll grab the car, get something to eat, and then we'll hit the hotel." Sound. "Okay?" She shrugged. "Whatever." Lena gave me a knowing glance. She was better with small talk. "You like In and Out?" she asked. Kaylee finally cracked a faint smile. "Yeah, I guess." We boarded the airport tram, that short automated train that connects terminals to parking garages and baggage claim. It was nearly empty except for a businesswoman staring at her phone, an older couple whispering to each other, and this one guy who got in right after us. He was maybe early 20s, clean cut, good looking, wore a dark fitted hoodie, designer, sneakers, a silver watch. His hair was styled like he just walked out of a barbershop commercial. He stepped in, nodded politely at me and Lena, and then immediately turned to Kaylee with this too easy grin. "Hey there," he said, his voice smooth. "You headed home or just getting in?" Kaylee looked up, startled. She's with us." I cut in casually, stepping slightly forward. "We're just passing through." He chuckled like he thought I was joking. Cool. Just asking, man. Didn't mean anything." Then he looked back at Kaylee. "So where you from?" Lena shot me a quick glance. We'd both been trained to spot red flags. This guy had no luggage, no backpack, no rolling suitcase, not even a phone charger in his hand. Most people flying anywhere carry something. Kaylee hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. "Just visiting," she mumbled. He leaned slightly closer. "Vegas or Phoenix?" "Hey," I said again, my tone firm this time. "She said she's visiting, let's leave it at that." He smirked, unfazed. All right. Didn't mean to step on any toes." Then, as if deliberately ignoring me, he asked Kaylee, "You here alone?" Lena subtly shifted next to Kaylee, putting herself between them. "We're all together," she said. "Work trip." The tram slowed for the first stop. The older couple got off. The businesswoman, too. Now it was just us and him. The doors slid closed. The hum of the tram echoed louder in the emptiness. "So what program you with?" he asked. Kaylee frowned. "Huh? You said you're visiting. Just wondering if it's for school or something." My gut twisted. "Hey," I said sharply, "enough." That's when I noticed something else. His hands were empty, but his pockets were bulging slightly, like he had something heavy in one of them. Not a phone. More like keys or maybe a wallet, but thicker. He smiled again, this time tighter. "Relax, man, just being friendly." "Yeah," I said, staring him down. "You can be friendly on another tram." When the tram doors opened at the next stop, I motioned for Kaylee and Lena to go first. We stepped off. The guy didn't get off. Relief flickered through me for a moment, until I saw his reflection in the glass wall as we walked down the corridor. He'd stepped out at the last second and he was following us. Lena noticed too. She leaned toward me and whispered, "He's tailing us." "I see him," I murmured. We kept walking, trying not to show we were aware. The crowd thinned as people split off toward baggage claim and rental cars. We took the escalator up toward the parking garage. He stayed about 20 feet behind. Kaylee whispered, "Why are you guys acting weird? Just stay close," I told her softly. "Don't talk to anyone." When we reached the elevator bank, the guy picked up speed. I could see him in the corner of my eye, trying to close the gap. Lena pressed the elevator button. The doors opened almost instantly. We stepped inside, the guy followed. Before he could step in, I turned and planted my hand against his chest. "Nah, man," I said low. "You're not getting in here. Wait for the next one." He smirked, but his eyes flickered. There was a glint of irritation there, like I'd just ruined his plan. "You think I'm following you?" he said with a fake laugh. "I know you are," I said quietly. "And I know exactly what you're doing." Lena's voice came from behind me, calm but cold. "Security's already been called. You might want to leave." He hesitated, jaw tight. The doors started closing. For a split second, I thought he might try to shove his way in, but he didn't. He just stood there, smirking as the doors slid shut between us. Kaylee looked pale. "What's going on?" "Just some creep," Lena said, forcing a smile. "We'll explain later." When the elevator opened on our level, we hurried out. The garage was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes every footstep echo. Rows and rows of cars. Then Lena froze. "He's coming up the stairs," she hissed. I turned, and sure enough, I could hear the echo of footsteps pounding on concrete steps. I pointed toward the rental car. "Go, get in the car now." Kaylee sprinted ahead with Lena. The guy came out of the stairwell, breathing hard but still smiling. "You really think I was following you?" he asked, voice sharp now. "You're paranoid, man." I took a step toward him, keeping my voice low but steady. "Walk away now, I've already called airport police." He took another step forward, eyes cold. "You don't know what you're talking about." I didn't blink. "You were asking a 15-year-old where she was staying. You followed us off a tram. You've got no luggage. So, yeah, I think I know exactly what I'm talking about." For a second, he just stared at me, face blank, unreadable. Then he muttered, "You're lucky," and turned, walking fast back toward the elevator. I stood there until he disappeared from sight. Only then did I head back to the car. Lena had Kaylee in the back seat, doors locked. She looked up at me, pale and shaking. "You okay?" "Yeah," I lied. "He's gone." We pulled out of the garage and drove toward the exit. Kaylee finally spoke. "Was that guy trying to rob us or something?" Lena looked at me, unsure what to say. I exhaled slowly. "Something like that." We filed a report once we were out of state. The airport police officer who took our call listened carefully, then said, "You did the right thing. We've had similar reports lately. Same description, same MO. Sounds like he's targeting minors traveling through the airport." I hung up and sat there in silence, the hum of the highway filling the space. Kaylee was asleep in the back seat, her hoodie pulled up, unaware of how close she might have come to disappearing. Lena finally said softly, "You think he was one of those traffickers?" I nodded. "Yeah, I think he was." For a long time, neither of us spoke. The desert stretched endlessly around us, glowing under the moonlight, and all I could think about was how easy it would have been for her to vanish. One distracted moment, one wrong answer to a stranger's question. That job taught me something I'll never forget. Danger doesn't always look like danger. Sometimes it smiles, dresses sharp, and asks where you're from. I never used to believe that air travel could carry the same sense of dread as walking into a dark alley at night. But that changed a few years ago, on a return flight home from Santiago, Chile. I was 27 at the time, traveling with my friend Jordan and his group of college buddies. We'd spent 2 weeks hopping around Chile and Peru, exploring ruins, hiking trails, eating street food that probably shaved a few years off my life, and laughing until our voices went hoarse. It was one of those trips that burns into your memory, the kind you think will end with warm nostalgia and a few cheap souvenirs. It didn't. The morning of our flight home, we decided to squeeze in one last walk through the city before heading to the airport. Santiago was beautiful. Clean air, the Andes towering in the distance, the sounds of morning traffic mixed with the faint strumming of a street guitarist. I remember thinking, this is the kind of place I could live someday. We lost track of time. By the time we returned to our hostel, it was nearly 1 p.m., and our flight was at 5:30. We scrambled to grab our bags, skipped lunch, and caught a cab to Arturo Merino Benitez Airport. The group was loud, joking and teasing each other. I'd met them only on this trip, and being introverted, I was more of an observer than a participant. I carried 3 things: my hat box, which had a small handmade gift for my mother, my travel backpack, and a black waist pouch where I kept my passport, wallet, and boarding pass. When we reached our gate, it was about 2 hours before boarding. Jordan suggested grabbing something to eat, and I agreed. "Can you guys watch my hatbox and backpack for a bit?" I asked the group. "Yeah, dude, no worries," said one of them. Matt, I think. He had his headphones on, already half-checked. Out from the trip, we left. I remember eating a burger that tasted way too greasy after 2 weeks of lean travel meals. It didn't sit right in my stomach, but I was too tired to care. When we came back to the gate, people were lining up. I immediately looked for my bags. My hatbox was there, but the blue backpack wasn't. Where's my bag?" I asked, scanning the pile of luggage. Nobody looked up at first. Then Jordan turned, his expression tightening. "Wait, wasn't it here?" "Yeah, right here." My pulse started to race. Matt pulled out one of his earbuds. "You sure? Maybe someone moved it?" We tore through the pile of bags. "Nothing." My voice rose. "Did anyone see someone take it?" A woman sitting near the gate glanced over but said nothing. The boarding announcement crackled over the speakers. My heart started pounding louder than the noise around me. Inside that backpack were my tablet, my phone, my sketchbook, and a small worn-out teddy bear I'd had since I was 8. It was stupidly sentimental, but it was the one thing I always traveled with. My parents had given it to me before my first solo trip abroad. Losing it? I don't know. It just hurt. Jordan ran to get an airport staff member while I circled the gate area, asking strangers if they'd seen a blue backpack. Most didn't understand my broken Spanish, and I was too panicked to think clearly. "Señor," a uniformed airport guard said. "Tranquilo, por favor." He motioned with his hands, asking me to breathe. I lost my bag. Blue backpack. "It was here," I stammered. "Su vuelo?" he asked. "Vuelo? 5:30, to Los Angeles." He nodded, but before anything else could happen, one of the flight attendants from our gate approached, a short woman with a sharp ponytail and calm eyes. "Sir," she said in accented English, "they are calling last boarding for your flight. I can't leave, my bag's gone." She looked at me, pity softening her voice. "If you stay, you miss the flight. Maybe the airport will find your bag later." I looked at Jordan, who gave me a helpless expression. "Man, we gotta go. If you stay, you're stuck here alone." My throat tightened. My heart told me to stay. My head told me I couldn't fix this by missing the plane. I took one last glance at the empty spot where my bag had been and followed Jordan down the boarding tunnel. Inside the aircraft, I felt hollow. The hum of the engines, the chatter, the smell of disinfectant, all of it blurred. A flight attendant noticed. "Rough day?" she asked gently. "Yeah," I muttered. "Lost my backpack. Had everything in it." She placed a hand on my shoulder. "I'm sorry. Let me know if you need water, okay?" I nodded and found my seat, 42A window. Beside me sat a kind-faced middle-aged man in a navy sweater. "Everything okay, young man?" he asked as I sat down. "Not really," I admitted. "Had my stuff stolen at the gate." He sighed. "Happens more than you'd think." "Sorry, kid." I gave a faint smile and stared out the window as the plane taxied. After about an hour, I got up to stretch. As I moved toward the back, I noticed the man sitting directly behind me. An older guy, maybe late 60s, with thinning gray hair and a wrinkled beige shirt. His seat was reclined too far, and his tray table was crooked. The smell of cheap whiskey lingered around him. When I passed, he muttered something under his breath, too slurred to understand. I shrugged it off and went to the restroom. As I walked back, I noticed a dark, wet spot near his feet. Maybe he'd spilled a drink. He was fidgeting, glancing over his shoulder as if paranoid someone was watching him. Hours passed. I watched movies, tried to sleep, failed. Every so often, I'd feel a thud against the back of my seat. His tray table slamming shut, his knees bumping the seat. I wanted to turn around and say something, but exhaustion pinned me down. When the plane finally began descending, I sighed in relief. Just a few more minutes until home. But as we touched down, a flight attendant and the same woman from earlier approached quietly. "Sir," she said, "can you please wait after everyone leaves?" My stomach dropped. "Am I in trouble?" She shook her head. "No, just please wait." When the last passengers filed out, I stayed seated, confused. The cabin was eerily quiet now, just the low hum of the air vents. The flight attendant returned, holding a small white plastic bag. "This was found," she said softly. Inside was my sketchbook. I froze, flipping through the pages. My drawings, my travel sketches, the streets, the faces. They were all there. But where did... "Please wait a bit longer," she interrupted. "There's more." Voices echoed near the front of the plane. I peeked down the aisle. 2 police officers had boarded, speaking in low, firm Spanish. One officer approached. "Senor, your tablet and phone. Can you write down your PIN?" I hesitated but complied, scribbling the numbers on a napkin. He nodded and walked toward the front of the plane. A few minutes later, he returned. "Please come, por favor." Followed him up the aisle, my pulse pounding. And there he was, the old man from behind me. He was standing between the 2 officers, his eyes bloodshot, his hands trembling with fury. On the seat next to him were my tablet and phone. "That's mine," he barked. His accent was thick, maybe American Midwest. "Those are mine." The officer turned to me. "Describe your tablet." "It has stickers. 3, a blue whale, a red sun, and a cracked corner on the top right." The officer flipped the device. "Exactly as I described." He nodded, then handed it to me. "Please unlock." I entered the code. The screen lit up immediately. My wallpaper, me and Jordan at Machu Picchu, filled the display. The old man's face twisted. "This is bullshit. You can't just take my..." "Senor," the officer said sharply, "security footage shows you taking this bag at the gate. Sit down." He didn't. He just glared at me. This cold, venomous stare that made my skin crawl. I remember whispering, "Why would you do that?" He didn't answer. The officers escorted him off the plane. One of them returned a few minutes later holding my teddy bear, worn and small but unmistakably mine. When he handed it to me, I almost broke down. The flight attendant smiled softly. "You're lucky," she said. "Not many get their things back." I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. "Thank you. Thank you so much." She patted my arm. "Get some rest, sweetheart. You're safe now." As I walked through customs later, that night, backpack restored and heart still pounding, I looked around at the crowds of exhausted travelers. For a moment, I wondered how many of them had stories like mine, quiet nightmares that unfold between terminals and takeoff. I learned something that night. Horror doesn't always need ghosts. Sometimes it just sits behind you in 42B, breathing, whiskey watching, waiting for a chance to take what's yours. I had just come off one of the longest flights of my life, 11 hours straight from Johannesburg to Atlanta. My head felt heavy, my back ached from sitting so long, and all I could think about was a hot shower and real food. I was traveling, home after spending 3 months volunteering with a wildlife conservation group in South Africa. It was my first time leaving the country alone, and though I had felt confident when I left, by the time I reached Atlanta, every ounce of that confidence had evaporated into fatigue. My name's Leah Brooks. And I'll never forget what happened that day at the airport. After landing, the customs process was brutal. I had to pick up my checked bag and recheck it for my connecting flight to Denver. I was already a bit overwhelmed. That mix of jet, lag noise, and the weird hum airports have that never really stops. Once my bags were dropped off again, I checked the time. I had just over 5 hours before my next flight. Okay, I muttered under my breath, clutching my phone. You can survive 5 hours. I was sweaty from the long haul, so I followed. The airport signs toward the showers. Not every airport has them, but I remembered reading online that this one did, tucked behind the lounges, kind of away from everything else. That's where I first saw him. He was standing near the entrance to the showers, a man who looked to be in his late 50s, maybe early 60s. Tall, slightly hunched, gray beard, an old leather jacket that looked heavy for the warm terminal. I remember thinking he looked out of place, like he'd been waiting there for a long time with no purpose. When I walked past, he smiled. Wasn't a friendly smile. It was that kind of grin that feels like someone's peeling into your thoughts looking for something they shouldn't find. His eyes didn't leave me even as I swiped my airport pass to enter the women's shower area. Okay, I whispered to myself, forcing a small laugh to keep the nerves from showing. Inside, I showered fast, just enough to rinse off the sticky travel sweat. I told myself that he was probably waiting for someone, maybe his wife or daughter. It was stupid to get worked up. Still, when I came out, I scanned the hallway. He was gone. Good, I said quietly, shouldering my backpack again. I headed toward the food court. It was around 10:45 a.m., but my stomach didn't care what time it was. I needed food. The airport buzzed with that typical half-chaotic energy. Suitcase wheels dragging, people shouting to each other about gates, kids crying, coffee machines, hissing. There was a long line at a sandwich stop near gate C22, so I pulled out my phone and called my mom while I waited. Leah? Honey, are you at your connection already? Yeah, I said, yawning into the phone. Just waiting for my flight, got like 5 hours to kill. Well, go eat something, you sound tired. I am. But I'll be fine, showered and everything, just starving now. We kept talking, about the animals, about how weird it felt to be coming home, about how I wanted nothing more than to sleep in my own bed again. That's when I felt someone standing way too close behind me. You know how you can feel someone's breath without seeing them? That hot, uncomfortable closeness that makes your neck itch? I froze for half a second, then turned slightly, enough to glance at whoever it was without looking like I was staring. It was him, the same old man from the showers. He was standing right behind me, almost pressed against my backpack. My stomach twisted. Mom, I'll call you back, I said, forcing my voice to stay calm. I hung up and took a step forward, using my bag to bump him slightly. Sorry, I muttered, pretending it was an accident. He smiled again, that same crooked, knowing grin, and said something low and fast. I couldn't tell if it was French or maybe something else, but I didn't understand a word. His breath hit me in the face, weighing sour and wet like spoiled milk mixed with old beer. Excuse me, I said firmly. The line moved up again, and I made sure to wedge myself between two other people. When it was finally my turn, I ordered a turkey, sandwich and an iced coffee, just wanting to get my food and sit somewhere far away. When the worker called my name, Leah. I stepped forward, but before I could grab my tray, the man reached past me and picked it up. I froze. He turned toward me and said, in slow, accented English, "A sweet girl like you shouldn't have to carry this." My heart dropped into my stomach. "I've got it, thanks," I said quickly, snatching the tray from his hands. I didn't wait to see his face. I walked away fast, pretending like I didn't notice him following me. I found an empty row of benches near one of the large windows overlooking the tarmac. I sat, ate quickly, and kept my eyes on the planes. For maybe 10 minutes, I thought I was in the clear. Then I saw him again. He sat directly across from me, just staring. I pretended to check my phone, trying to ignore the way my hands were shaking. Finally, I looked up and said quietly, "Can I help you with something?" He tilted his head. "You are traveling alone, yes?" My heart raced. That's not your business. He smiled again. You should not be alone here. Not safe. Before I could answer, he reached over and placed his hand, cold and heavy, on my knee. I jerked back instantly. Don't touch me. People nearby looked over, but not one person intervened. He stood up as I grabbed my things and moved away, but instead of staying, he followed again, walking slowly, deliberately. That's when my panic turned into pure instinct. I spotted a flight help desk near gate C25 and made a beeline for it. The woman at the counter, a middle-aged lady with glasses and a Delta badge, looked up. Hi, sweetheart, can I help you? Yes, I stammered. That man, he's following me. He touched me. Her expression changed instantly. Where is he? I turned to point, but he was gone. Vanished, like he'd melted into the crowd. Swear he was just there, I said, breath shaking. She picked up the phone and called security anyway. Within minutes, 2 airport police officers showed up. They asked me for a description and I gave it as best I could. Tall, gray beard, old leather jacket, foreign accent, possibly French. One of them nodded. We've had a few complaints this week about a man fitting that description, he said. You did the right thing. They told me to stay near the help desk until my boarding time. For the next few hours, I sat there, too anxious to even scroll my phone. Every man that walked by with gray hair made my pulse spike. The officers checked the nearby cameras but didn't find anything clear enough to identify him. When my flight was finally called, one of the officers, a kind man named Officer Reyes, said, I will walk you to your gate, you'll be fine now. And he did. He waited until I boarded, even gave me a reassuring nod as I walked down the jet bridge. When I finally sank into my seat, the weight of it all hit me. I tried to convince myself it was over, that the man was just some weird, lonely traveler. But when the plane began to taxi, I glanced out the window. Down below, near the terminal glass, someone was standing. Gray jacket, still as a statue. Even from that distance, I swear he was smiling. I told myself it couldn't be him, that my eyes were playing tricks, that I was just exhausted. But part of me still wonders how he got past security, and whether he'd followed someone else since.